Okay, then that the Choa Kashe, Choa Ni, the Zondo, then get the name Pugi, then that name Mapu Gabgala, drinking in Monday, Dajak Tampanya Metavonga, Chunkur Korbe, Duchin Segure, Tapebekland Chana. The Changmage Chunkur Duchin La Chetan, the Yesu Mendawatre, Doctor Mendawan do data, Yungrak in the Peven, Basundela, Chunkur Duchin Segido. The in the Changme, then Toma, Joa Masin, and Samba Shonju Cho to Semje. Then it was then some Kanshi, Lindy Pu, then the Chegin.
So, Khenpo Rinpoche begins by asking all of you to generate the body-mind in a clear and precise manner. He also adds that today is a Buddhist festival day. It's the day which celebrates Buddha Shakyamuni turning the wheel of the Buddha Dharma. According to the Tibetan calendar. There are variations in terms of other calendars on which day this Buddhist festival falls. However, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, it is today. So please again start by generating the body-mind.
Tushin singing to Kapla, Tene Chirtan gets a Savina, gets a day, Jurchek.
It's explained that the force or the impact of virtuous actions on a Buddhist festival day is much, much stronger than on any other regular day.
That Tuchin la gets a saya looks it, Nambatsam Hare, should you pay Chevali you said it?
Now, festival days are something one finds in all religions. So all religions have specific days where they celebrate certain events that are part of the history of their religion.
Tene Lagdun to Maraso Nangba Soyina, Tene Tembe. Zeshin Yum Ye
Nangpa Yena
Tambacham Den Degi Zepa Shepherdin Tembe Tushin Yum Tushin Ye Song Suchiore Tilla Tembe
Shiam Ye Sungoya Ye Yore
Ye Sungoya the Carson so Yiri. That Jesus can be here, didn't dump it here.
Jesus Trempasity
Yesu Tunpa, did the soul drawer.
Now, in the Buddhist calendar, you find 4 main Buddhist festival days, as it were, or Buddhist festivals. Some may last more than a day. And another, so there are 4 major Buddhist festivals and 4 minor ones.
That Tempezation is the Tempacham the corner ranking doing on the song shabbat to sentence of
The 4 major ones were listed by the Buddha, the Bhagavan himself, as is recorded in various sutras.
Tambacham the Sone Nala Tepa Yunkin, Jinju Soge 마옹 받는 게 내신 이질라 신체 대상적인 제받던 예수 전쇼 송요지.
In sutras, one finds instructions by the Buddha like the following in terms of special places and special days in the Buddhist calendar, as it were. Instructions such as Buddha Shakyamuni having said that devoted followers should travel to the 4 major places of Buddhist pilgrimage and spend time in those places, primarily focusing on recollecting the deeds of the Buddha. So these 4 places are the place of his birth, the place of his enlightenment, the place of him turning the wheel of the Buddha Dharma, and the place of his passing into parinirvana. And the place of Buddha Shakyamuni's birth is that of Lumbini, which today is situated in Nepal.
And
the place of his enlightenment is Bodh Gaya, situated in the Indian state of Bihar. And the place of him turning the wheel of the Buddha Dharma for the first time is Sarnath in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh. And the place of his passing into parinirvana is presumably also situated in the Indian state of Bihar. There are today many translations where Buddhists can read about and find out about the various deeds of the Buddha in terms of his life example. And today is the day of Buddha Shakyamuni turning the wheel of the Buddha Dharma for the first time in a place today known as Sarnath, which at the time was a large grove, a park-like grove, where animals, deer and other animals roamed. And so Buddha Shakyamuni, more than 2,500 years ago, turned the wheel of the Buddha for the first time there. And when turning the wheel of the Buddha Dharma for the first time, what he explained to the disciples present were the 4 noble truths.
Tene, the Indu, Sanje Sungshaveke, Katenzo, Maransu Jesu, Ten, Sanje la Tushin Kabla, so what up, Gavasawayina, then Anzu Serap Tamshe to Sanje Jesus Zungri.
So, in terms of this day, for a Buddhist practitioner, it's important to focus on this, namely the fact that Buddha Shakyamuni today turned the wheel of the Buddha Dharma for the first time. One should recollect the contents of this teaching, that of the Four Noble Truths, as well as the historic place in question where this occurred, and in general focus on engaging in deeds of virtue on this day. If this is done, I presume regularly, not just once, in terms of this specific day, which celebrates the turning of the wheel of the Buddha Dharma for the first time, then the Buddhist practitioner who focuses in this way, who recollects, who engages in virtuous actions and so on and so forth on this day, is a person whose actions of this day may result in this person always becoming a follower of the Buddha.
Today, that Handa Chuangu Chitella,
Yes. Okay.
Tanda Chuachik La, de Yung the Do, Tutam Singekaja Shake Loose, Tip Court the Candaria Sage.
The first of the questions that will be answered today concerns the phenomenon called Tugdam in Tibetan. Now, the word itself is simply a word which means meditation, though it's the honorific form of it. So it's a reference to the type of meditation which one could perhaps say is advanced or special of sorts. It's not about meditation in general.
Chitang di kechade nga ke zorim ka khatune mangbochi yong de gi.
Now the type of meditation concerned here in terms of this specific key term, primarily in the context of the Buddhist Tantras, refers to the second type of meditation found in the Buddhist Tantras, or taught in the Buddhist Tantras, which is about the various stages of meditation whereby the practitioner completes or perfects meditation. So it's a reference to meditation on the true nature of reality.
Penna didayung de gdwa kusum lamcher risen. Kusum lamdu cherve ginyamlens. Tanda penna number topake kechik tangpo de nga kechik
kusum lamcher tadi Så rimligt kyrkodan dragor.
Yes.
Där det dina levånger.
Levånger. Penna kusum lamcher songdiar. Kusum
Min kända cyklar.
that nga kalati yong de kusum lamcher sing. Nga choga kari na kusum lamcher de yare.
To begin with, in the path of the Buddhist Tantras, and we're here looking in particular at methods and procedures of the fourth class of Tantra. To begin with, there is the mention of carrying onto the path the three so-called kayas, meaning the three dimensions of Buddha, the enlightened state.
Teacher Tongpo Chuku Lamcher de Kabla Nanzo Yidam Chala Kare Songyo Nanda, Choga Yebatin Songyo Nanda. Chö Tamche Rajin Tongbani, then yes, Chingo.
So
Rogu.
You have, in terms of the three kayas, the Dharmakaya perspective, which is to be, as it were, carried on to the path, meaning the practitioner in terms of practicing the Buddhist Tantras brings that perspective into the practice, whatever the practice may be. And that's a reference to the perspective of emptiness or essencelessness. That's the Dharmakaya perspective in terms of the three kayas, the three dimensions of Buddha, the enlightened state. And in terms of the Buddhist practice, or in terms of Buddhist meditation practices, the practice method would always involve the practitioner starting out the meditation by way of recollecting the essencelessness or absence of a real reality in all things. And the part of the practice method is when one recites the so-called Svabhava mantra, which is a mantra in Sanskrit where the words are about recollecting the nature or the true nature, however one wants to phrase it, of reality, that of reality's essencelessness. So any practice in the Buddhist Tantras would start out in this manner, namely the practitioner recollecting the absence of a real reality in all things. The Dharmakaya perspective.
Penna Rani la Tenchin Zavelame Semi Yuma
Zavelama te
Zavelama Tige Yes Semi Ge the Machu Bangot Shawa the Yes Tingo Yarwa.
So here, in terms of the proper procedures of the Buddhist Tantras, the practitioner would previously to engaging in the meditation have been given what is known as pointing out instructions by the kind root guru, pointing out instructions that have enabled the practitioner to one degree or another gain insight of mind's true nature. Or one could perhaps say, pointing out instructions that have enabled the practitioner to some degree, one level or another, experience, as it were, insight of, or experiencing, mind's true nature.
Tene tati gel kase ne tutu le nyambar jana jute shukulam sere chade.
And so at the beginning of any meditation section, there is the Svabhava mantra or a mantra like it, usually the Svabhava, the so-called Svabhava mantra, and it's on the basis of this mantra, the recitation of it, simultaneously with the recitation of it, the practitioner is to recollect his experience of, to whatever degree it happened, mind's true nature. And this is then called the Dharmakaya perspective. Which in this way one carries onto the path. One makes use of the experience one has had of this perspective in effect of the kind root guru's instructions, pointing out instructions. Then next, in terms of the three kayas, there is the Sambhoga kaya perspective, which also is to be carried on to the path, meaning made part of the meditation practice. And you have a large number of Sambhoga kaya perspectives, as it were, in the shape and form of various yidams, Hevadra, Chakra Samvara, and other yidams.
Tene, ota ti jet na trukulam cher the, ta pana rangyo, ta khansa veser trodu cheye, tene nimbe mikpa cheye.
Uso trodu cheya kan?
Nimba kap mikpa mongbo yoro. Tene taga na shinge rangyo tongbo wang lin. Then
you have the Nirmanakaya perspective, which in terms of the meditation practice is about parts of the practice like the following. There is the coming and going of light emanated from the Jidam to perhaps the same Yidam, but the second Yidam being situated in front of one in the mandala, for example, and so on and so forth. And there is light emanated for the sake of purifying or relieving sentient beings of suffering and the like. There is the coming and going of light meditated upon by the practitioner. And the coming and going of light has then various purposes. There is also the practice of taking an empowerment during the meditation. This also very often involves the emanating of light which strikes the practitioner, thus conferring empowerment. Now, these and other parts of the meditation concern the third dimension of Buddha, the enlightened state, the Nirmanakaya perspective.
Ti inde panna ta doje tek pe nyamne pa ji na kusam lom chella ta par nyamne nang go yor ba nima tak par chi.
So a practitioner of the Vajrayana, in terms of a proper practitioner, does this type of meditation on a daily basis. The type of meditation which incorporates the perspectives just listed by way of making them part of the practitioner's daily practice.
Tene nyamne yakun nang kin ji na ta semge nam to chotang ge le yang kusam lom chel ki nyamne de yong de kre.
Semgi nam toki trotang sungdu.
Semgi trotang da chi gel pen na de sung ra wa. Nam to ke chik thong bong ga ke chi sima ma che na ya par de la ma che bi she pa yo de ba de chukun nyamne di gel nang chog yo.
Okay. Daddy Jamgön gela.
Ja.
Da pena jadje drotsarva, tese drotsarva.
Ja,
Jamgön. Jag menar gachen drotsarva.
Mar getting machik gela ya.
Det kan det sjuma såna.
Ona.
Digi njamlen chi tupken chiki tese jadje drotsarva njamso lempa på. Injera va?
Ta le tangbu kakam ne tele rewa jab go yo re ten kana kansam kamyo na. Nyamne te zongru sona te nang tuba chag.
Re, tene gachen drotsarva. Kan det se?
Rotsar res de me shira ko mi to te yin ta te.
Jadje drotsar. Njamlen mangpo chetsar.
Ja.
Injera va?
Tangos chet wa te nyamne mongbo ji han ro go gro wa. Tanda na ngaso rewa jab go gro wa.
De reva da ledan go va gab choger va. De ngosu en de gomtupken.
Gomtupken.
Ma köper sem de namto nigi bala gomtupa på de gachen rotsa i göra varsågen. Kan du så göra man så?
Det går ju inte.
Läso. Daddy Tandadi kusum lankergi tabchirta mirtang sungnang sarva.
Jete.
De lamkertenso semgi drotangi gela tandadi kechikma nigi barla ma kepe shepa sondichiki kogo gerava.
Ja.
Korang lamker ngoma den där va.
Ja.
Da ledan bo pa ina reva da chikya va den de cheka chegera va.
Ja.
Dina ngosu de
Togma va.
Namto nigi barla. Da namto nigi barla kechik man nigi barla ingera va.
Ja.
Chuku gomtopa. Ngoshepa.
Ngoshe ne te kambo gör va.
Re. Dadi tanda chukugi chashidera va.
Ja.
So you have the three kayas, the first of which is that of the Dharmakaya, which is about mind's true nature. To some extent, experience or see, in effect of the kind Guru's instructions, the essencelessness of the mind, its absence of a real reality. One first then has to understand that the mind, in terms, what we call the mind, is explained as the term mind, and what we in this part of the world, in the West or otherwise, may refer to when we use this word, may not be what is referred to in the context of this type of meditation. In the context of this type of meditation, and as to Buddhism in general, it is explained that basically what we call the mind is a constant stream of instances of knowing. Of course, what is known, here you have a great variety. But here we're looking at the basic, what the so-called mind is about fundamentally. And it's a constant stream of instances of knowing. And as a given instance comes to its end, and before the arising of the next instance, there is what one may call a gap. And here, an experienced and advanced practitioner sees mind's true nature, as it were. The essencelessness or emptiness of the mind. This is, of course, a very, very subtle process, the constant arising and ceasing of instances of knowing. However, as was said, an experienced and rather advanced practitioner would be able to recognize the absence of a real reality as to the mind stream in conjunction with the gap between two instances. Of course, for beginner practitioners, and this is what the Dharmakaya perspective is about, seeing the empty nature of the mind. The fact that there isn't even a trace of a real reality. However, for beginner practitioners, that to have a direct perception of emptiness here may be difficult. However, this is what one as a beginner should strive to be able to do by way of the practice and the various methods one uses. Now, a person who has entered the Vajrayana by way of having taken an empowerment and thus committed himself to upholding the samaya, or the commitments or vows of this path, needs to do, or part of the commitments is to do this kind of practice on a daily basis.
디인테 툭담 생긴데 cirtang nanjur patege nyamning ge shesare.
So the Tibetan word tukdam is a reference to this type of practice, which incorporates all three perspectives or dimensions of Buddha, the enlightened state.
Perna ta tergaza nong do la lama ya soke. Tene ngame tuna lama deva tenzo shepe takpa rechi tene jekacha sayo mare kongba godjap ten nyamja se yu yorwa. Ti min tela kong tudam yu de segre mato.
Ja.
Yin segmare.
Shen segimari.
Yin segmare. Penna kamamba je go singeji lepchana tandan je ga yo mare kamamba tudam yu de yore segro.
Now, in terms of good lamas, good practitioners, those who uphold the principles of their path, as well as in the past, both in the past, such individuals in the present and in the past would start the day in this way, by way of doing this type of meditation, which incorporates all three dimensions of Buddha, the enlightened state. And therefore, people who would perhaps have come to a monastery or the residence of such a lama or guru to seek advice or ask for blessing, for example, would, if they came before the Lama had finished his morning session, they would be told by the attendant that there is no audience right now because the Guru is in Tukdam. Tukdam is the word used for the meditation of proper practitioners. And one cannot disturb or interrupt those meditation sessions.
Tene ta jila chabe minte ta drin kaza mang chewa shedra chil pa koduk doa. Shedra chil kondo ta nanjur pa thi sendi nuang gan rodu tingen zena nyambar jabatela tudam sen shedra pa chil koduk doa.
Nowadays there is the misunderstanding of this Tibetan word.
That misunderstanding mare.
Well, it's not a misunderstanding. However, it's a limited understanding of the implications of the Tibetan word tukdam, namely the fact that most people today think of an advanced practitioner seated in meditation in conjunction with the process of death and dying, that this is what the word tukdam is about or refers to. But it's not, it includes that, yes, but also daily meditation practice by proper practitioners. These sessions are also called tukdam.
Tan dorna Consate ukche.
Now, in terms of the process of death and dying, if we consider the point where the so-called outer breathing stops, the individual stops breathing. Now, in terms of a general understanding of the process of death and dying, this is called the moment of death.
And
in terms of modern science, once a person stops breathing, that spells for the ceasing of functions in the brain and in the heart, and this is synonymous with death. That's the definition of death, as it were, in terms of modern day science. Now, according to Buddhism, the view is different. Brain and heart, as well as all other parts of the physical body, are made up of matter. The mind isn't. The mind is, or the mind stream is immaterial. So, mind continues, according to Buddhism, after the death of the physical body. As mind is an immaterial phenomenon with two basic qualities, that of vivid and knowing. The mind, or the so-called mind stream, as it were, as we saw, what we refer to as the mind is, according to Buddhism, a constant stream of instances of knowing. That continues after the death of the physical body. Now, a practitioner, in terms of meditation practice, the practice of meditation is performed by the vivid and knowing mind stream, not by the body. And as the vivid and knowing mind stream is immaterial, meditation can continue after the death of the physical body.
Tati nyambari yang tu nanjur pati ge lepa ta ni na so ko shawa me na yang zupo de ro yin da dan ra gi ma re.
Now, even though upon the death of the physical body, both functions in brain and heart gradually stop, in consequence of the advanced meditator, who, in terms of his individual mind stream, is in meditation, the impact of that is that the physical body will not start decaying immediately upon death.
That rigid day on to that recasang to nang la that nangbe yunche so yinayandra
Nang Pesu.
nangba ki lo yunjun so yinayandra then sirikba yinayandra tate kensana chegyo.
Now, young Buddhists in today's world who may not have knowledge of all of these details, as well as scientists, are quite astounded when encountering, some do, an individual seated in meditation even after the death of the physical body.
Teachede ta nanjor pa shi unde nanjor pa de chiwa de la ramba ji yo de. Dangbo panna jongwa shi kamde gaung bi ro.
Da supuki.
Zukbo gi jongwa shi nu pa de zong bi.
Now, in terms of the process of death and dying, according to Buddhism, the physical body is made up of 4 basic elements. Now, for as long as the physical body is alive and well, these 4 basic elements perform their functions, which means that the body stays alive. Now, in terms of the process of death and dying, the functions of the 4 elements will gradually stop, spelling the imminent death of the physical body.
Tan jong ki thendum de la sita nangta songwe ta se ne nga ni shuta shira song yo.
And for a knowledgeable practitioner, there are signs of this happening. You have 3 levels of signs which indicate the gradual ceasing of the functions of the 4 basic elements, outer, inner, and secret signs.
And the two quarter get Hapul Shuyo the Metingemendo, when I chose all the Chinese sing a shoe day.
Now, Khenpo Rinpoche has given some explanations regarding this process, at least on 2 occasions here at the Vienna Center. He may also have given explanations in Dakpo Kardiling, however, he can't recall that, so he doesn't know for sure. He thinks he has given explanations there too.
Chever to Shamarguncho in the Songji, Yelly Yanning and Mashu was a trinket.
Dakpola.
Dakpoli in the line Tase.
During one of these occasions, Khenpo Rinpoche explained this process in the context of a song of realization authored by Köncho Yenlag, the 5th Shamarpa. However, right now we do not have the time to go into these details. Once the gradual ceasing of the functions of the 4 basic elements has come to its end, then the effect is that sense perceptions cease.
Nangwa chepa topa sene nekaps yeyore pena phala topa kam karcha de ma chitsung ma lung de ta korana karishar ge rasna kallame nonga thamje karbo yimbe nonga che shargi
no. nang che top som ladava. Nang sikti kan det ikke kogungen.
Garbyn numat.
Tene marnang de.
Marnang.
Ja råd. Ta det dang på. Kan det ikke se hvor det går.
Dati yuksho. Noche to som bi yeshite yuksho.
Med det rigger av att samla tittang.
Dati yuksho te jema shuchuch.
Well, at the end of that gradual process, as was said, sense perceptions cease. And here another process starts, a process which also involves 3 stages, as it were. In the previous, you had the outer, inner, and secret signs. Here, it's another type of 3 processes. To make it understandable, that would require a lot of explanation regarding the names of these 3 processes, as well as what they involve. So Khenpo Rinpoche says we'll leave out these details for now because of time restrictions. But in brief,
치와 쇼쿠 냠레인 송아레 다디 다시 노안데서 간가 가세네.
In terms of sense perceptions ceasing, what happens in the mind of the dying person is that the objects, he is now no longer in contact with outer objects, with the outer world. It's no longer known, it's no longer those perceptions of outer objects, an outer world, and so on, are no longer at hand.
다티 레차드 딱감들라 벤나 추크 공바데 셈팀 밤부 무슨 순절에 깨지마 가시실 샤르기요.
And the effect of this is that, at least for a few instances, the Dharmakaya perspective, in terms of mind's true nature, is fully seen, because mind no longer has any contact with an outer world, which would confuse the person. Preoccupations with this and that no longer happen, because this and that is no longer known at all. And in terms of sentient beings, whether you're a human being or just a worm, makes no difference. Remember, the mind is an immaterial phenomenon. The physical body is a material phenomenon, and they are 2 opposites. So whether the sentient being has had a large physical body or a very tiny one makes no difference here. In terms of the mind, differences do not occur as to what the mind fundamentally is, namely a stream of vivid and knowing instances. And as the mind is now cut off from an outer world and all the distractions because of it, there is a short window of opportunity, as it were, for recognizing mind's true nature in that it manifests in effect of being cut off from involvement with an outer world.
다 심신 패무체 팔체와데 티 나리 샤리아지요 나요 오식 말이 얄로.
However, most individuals will not understand the clear manifestation of mind's true nature here. They won't recognize this to be mind's true nature, and therefore not be able to benefit from this opportunity.
미센디 난도 나랑 운에 도제 택벨 다 람레 슈 냠린데 전된 킨지이나 축구 공파 샤로네다 나랑 남준 나 용대에 니 베테 지게지 못해로요.
Whereas the practitioner who has spent his life with meditation practice for the purpose of recognizing mind's true nature, he has throughout his life, on a daily basis, made efforts to recognize mind's true nature, to find mind's true nature as it were, and may to some extent have seen mind's true nature. Of course, very advanced practitioners would have acquired that skill during the practitioner's lifetime. However, the common denominator for all these practitioners, proper practitioners, is that this is what they have tried to familiarize themselves with on a daily basis throughout their life. And in effect of that familiarization, when mind's true nature is clear to be seen, in effect of the mind being cut off from involvement with an outer world, mind's true nature is recognized. And that practitioner then, for various periods of time upon death, remains in his knowledge of mind's true nature. And this is what is called tuktam in the context of the process of death and dying.
텔라양 베난 난줄바테 꾸친 델라 냠린 타르심바지나 tên 두담 유생게대 용금하래.
Now, a practitioner who, during his lifetime, has achieved a realization of mind's true nature does not necessarily rest in meditation upon death. He has previously realized mind's true nature during his lifetime. So, in that case, death spells the attaining of enlightenment of the practitioner.
단 난줄바데 센델라 냠니 랍지 연킨지나 베나 삭친라고 적친라고 따웨 냠니 랍지 연킨나 다 쇼궁랑라 내로스들라
Det kultivate ringla kyrko matonken så.
Kutsenderla nyamnin tarmashinche.
Yeah. Then you
have
practitioners who during their lifetime has not attained a direct realization of mind's true nature, the Dharmakaya perspective, but who in dependence upon proper practice of Mahamudra, Mahaati and other practices like that, this practitioner has gotten to a point where he, to a very great extent, is familiar with mind's true nature, even though he has not yet attained a direct realization of mind's true nature. Tene? Dedu?
Dedu, 다진 추구 공부하지 날을 샤르와.
Re?
디 내 모시에 손으로와. 모시리 길 똑같은 양발이 장로요.
This practitioner will, in terms of the process of death and dying, recognize mind's true nature as it is clear to be seen, in effect of being cut off from involvement with a world or a world system and what that implies. And that practitioner would then remain in meditation on mind's true nature for a period of time, a day or two or longer, upon death.
Tene, that the dragon bachi yung Tene yang sendella zorum la zorum gam yung kinche pana shakchin tang de zute gam yung to che shakchin gam tong chinkin yin ayang zorum la treji ye ma che wa ji na
Trögi ye shida
jolam
gi satangpo.
O tin raw chi la malewa chi khongsa ji na.
Then you have another group of practitioners who have spent their life doing this type of meditation, the type of meditation which is about the various stages where the practitioner completes or perfects his meditation in the context of the Buddhist tantras, being synonymous with the Dharmakaya perspective in particular. You have and that would again refer to practitioners of Mahamudra, Mahāti and the like. These practitioners may have made these efforts throughout their life. However, they haven't yet progressed to the attaining of the first level of the path of unification, where the wisdom within has developed to the point where indications are that the practitioner will for certain make progress. The practitioner in question is rather in the process of approaching a realization of mind's true nature. And here the simile of heat is used to describe what is at hand, in the same way as when you rub two wooden sticks against one another, you can produce fire, and prior to the fire starting, heat indicates that a fire is about to be started. And that's the simile which describes the level of wisdom of mind's true nature in terms of the first of the four main levels of the path of unification. Now, practitioners who haven't made the progress of having attained that level yet, these practitioners
tudam yurin si yugndo
would in terms of the Tugdam part, as to the process of death and dying, remain in Tugdam for a longer period of time. And when the Tugdam ends, they would be able to take rebirth in a so-called Pure Land, where they, during their lifetime there, will be able to proceed throughout all the various levels up to Buddha, the enlightened state. Now, in terms of practitioners who may not have practiced either Mahamudra or Marha'ati a great deal or at all during their lifetime, but who have unconditional devotion for their guru, they may, by virtue of their guru's spiritual influence, come to a recognition of mind's enlightening nature, its translucent nature, as it were, in terms of the process of death and dying. They may, because of their unconditional devotion, they are a proper receptacle, as it were, for spiritual influence, the spiritual influence of the guru, and in consequence they may at the time of death come to recognize mind's true nature because of these two conditions: the spiritual influence of their guru and their unconditional devotion for the guru. And it is explained that this type of practitioner may also take rebirth in the Pure Land, in a Pure Land such as the land of Sukhavati, or even attain a direct realization of the Dharmakaya. Then you have another type of practitioner who, on the basis of primarily practicing the path of a bodhisattva, and the practice or a meditation practice belonging to the first category of types of meditation in the Buddhist Tantras, the various stages of generating oneself as the Yidam and the enlightened world of the Yidam. The combination of cultivating the Bodhi mind and this type of meditation, where the practitioner, though, have done this type of meditation to the extent where the mandala clearly manifests in his mind's eye, as it were. This type of practitioner at the end of the Tukdam is said to take rebirth in a Pure Land called Kache, where he will continue his efforts on the path to enlightenment as a so-called knowledge holder.
Bana kapje jin sangen lenzo zo dorje tekbe lam jinyamni nang de kinso de je.
And this is a so-called Pure Land, figuratively speaking, where in specific practitioners of the Buddhist tantras may take rebirth in the context of the circumstances just described.
That the Dutch United Exarabo linked.
So-
Tepenangara so doje tekbe chui la chik nganzo yuk yu yobanda hajang nejang kalbasang bore thola tangnang yu.
Now, individuals who have come in contact with the Vajrayana should realize just how fortunate they are and not waste this opportunity.
Pena jambal yang tang ngo mini pa lama sangka be songre.
Now, Lama Tsongkhapa, said to embody the Bodhisattva wisdom Manjushri,
Kong
said,
sangye le la
Sangye,
sangye le chang ka be dorje the songre.
Sangye le chankave doje text.
This sedu karasegi yorsana. Kalbasang bundela sangye tongcha shi pegi yore te dorje the pasang khinte sangye shakje thoba ma to yo mare. Sangye le chung ko re segi yore.
It is more difficult to find the path of the Vajrayana than to find the path of the Buddha's doctrine in general, simply because it is only Shakyatupadang Tongtrapa
Tongcha pati.
Kongit Sankharego.
Mepa nangze.
Because in terms of the 1,000 Buddhas who will manifest during this era, the fortunate Kalpa, the only Buddhas who will set forth the Vajrayana are Buddha Shakyamuni and Möpa Nangtse, the 1,000th Buddha. So the opportunity for practicing the Buddhist tantras is a very rare one. So one shouldn't waste that opportunity.
Laso that chawachik kandu.
So the second question is the following. Does Khenpo Rinpoche suggest a special curriculum to make progress in meditation? That is to say, first Ngondro, then Tonglen, Lojong and so on, then Shamatha and so on for Western people.
Okay.
Now, Western people, the person who asks the question says, have full-time professions, and it seems nearly impossible to do this type of program, such as the program of 7 Ngondros, 3 years of Shamatha, then Vipassana, with an extraordinary teacher and so on. Therefore, the person who asked this question feels rather discouraged.
Tan den dere wala. Chirtang shu re mato program dere di nalan zuisho sene just shugiyo mare.
Well,
this
this was an example of how some people or practitioners in the past made a great deal of progress during a single lifetime. Khenpo Rinpoche didn't mean to say that everyone has to do this. However, one needs to, I would say, consider what one would need to do in order to make that kind of progress. If one chooses to not do that, that's up to the individual. So Khenpo Rinpoche didn't mean to say everyone has to follow that type of program. It's a choice made by every individual in terms of understanding what one needs to do in order to make quite some progress.
Yin yang penata sanje gi chö singende gombo khase juresha. De danjur milin de tokkale khabu khase juresha. Deso khan lo jong na che ne. De se de nong shen de to chen yong ru dang. Simal pembe dam shu to ze shuk che se drum na na ma de ke yo.
Tse digi nangshe chung
dang
tene
tse simala pembe chö dube tu se de to ze mang dong sha.
Yeah, da chö di mang ru tang go na te tse sacrifice da ma song na te
Yeah,
che.
to ze set
so gi sam lo tang go.
Yeah, to ze ngarang ge chen de ge le ka ya go che le. Ngala pen chin ya go che to. Tene ye ma kong ba ya go ji nyo so sum tene ge cha ye de nyong tang ne. Chik chö ge ten la kamba kan to to yep to na ya go shira yo re.
However, it would be good for everyone to give thought to the fact that encountering a Buddha's doctrine is something very, very rare, and to obtain a free and well-favored human rebirth, during which one has all conditions needed for practicing the path to enlightenment, is also exceedingly difficult to obtain. It's a good thing to give thought to perspectives like this, by way of which one may be able to reduce some of the attachments one has to the affairs of this life, such as success in a profession, and therefore later on having a good pension, and therefore in retirement being able to have a comfortable life, a good residence, and so on and so forth. It's a matter of individual choices, what one does. No one, in terms of Buddhism, is telling people you have to make this choice, otherwise it's not okay, as it were. It's up to each and every individual who encounters the Buddha Dharma to make his or her choices. What the Buddha Dharma does is that it gives individuals the various perspectives. And then it's up to the individual to make the choices. It might be in terms of a good rebirth and so on, with the possibility of practicing the Buddha Dharma yet again. It would probably, at least from the perspective of the Buddha Dharma, be a good thing if a Buddhist gave thought to all of this and came to the conclusion where he makes the choice of reducing his efforts in terms of success in this one lifetime, as to a well-paid profession, as to a good pension and the like. It would be good for the person himself and his future prospects in terms of rebirths in various worldly existences, to reduce the time he spends on achieving good conditions in this life and instead spend a bit more time on practicing the path to enlightenment.
Western show that Tawana took my say, you are my penna Tauka Union Pelonta.
Yeah.
The boss the Pelonta. Then the Carabena, Zune, she can't to Yamin Chegio.
It's a matter of individual choice. And in the Western world, yes, the norm is, as also in other parts of the world, to have a comfortable life in general. And individuals mainly strive for that. However, in the Western world, it is not impossible to make other choices, to sacrifice comfort for time to practice the path to enlightenment. One can take the example of some Buddhist centers where residents have made the choice to, or have rather sacrificed the comforts of this life for time to make efforts on the path to enlightenment. Examples would be the center of Dakpo Kajiling, where residents who live and work in that center live very simply. They live in mobile homes of a very low quality. Living circumstances, income and so on, very minimal. However, that's the choice they made. They made the choice of more time for efforts on the path to enlightenment, and from the perspective of the Buddha Dharma, this is a good choice. You have also the example of another Buddhist community in France, situated at a small village called Le Bosque, the Kundroling Monastery, where the community live very simply. And all the members of this community too made the choice of sacrificing the comforts of this life for time to practice the path to enlightenment. So it's not impossible in the Western world to make this choice, though it's quite unusual that people make this choice, giving up a comfortable life for a life of minimal comfort, but time to practice the path to enlightenment.
In
the area of Dakpo Kajiling, situated in Dordogne in France, there are both a Kagyu community and a Nyingma community. Quite a few people live there, having made the choice just described.
And
in both the Kagyu community and the Nyingma community of this area, there are individuals who, upon death, have been seated in so-called Tugdam. So that's all for this question and answer session.
Tanto